This week marks 3 years since he's been, to all intents and purposes, in solitary confinement in a prison in Pakistan. Dreadful conditions, people are worried about his health. Did you ever imagine that he would be in prison for this long and that you would be so utterly cut off from him for this long?
Now it's been around 5 months since we've last spoken to him, and he was being poorly treated with a serious condition last time. I just can only hope that nothing else has gone wrong in there. These are crooked people, they're criminals who have no respect for rule of law and no honor.
I don't see President Trump changing gears on the Pakistani question. I think he likes having this new relationship with the Pakistani chief of staff. I think he likes that it's a military leader. He likes that sort of thing.
This is a global production.
Hello, everyone. It's the latest episode of The X-Files with me, Christiane Amanpour in London, and Jamie, who's in the United States. But today and this week, we have something different for you. What we're going to do is talk about the story of the legendary cricketer, Pakistan's former Prime Minister, Imran Khan. As some people have said, he's arguably the most famous Pakistani since the state was created nearly 80 years ago. So this week marks 3 years since he's been, to all intents and purposes, in solitary confinement in a prison in Pakistan. Dreadful conditions, people are worried about his health, people are worried about the fact that he's pretty much unable to see family or legal teams. It takes a huge amount to try to get to him. Many of his family members, clearly, and his supporters and what remains of his political party believe that the charges he's facing are both spurious and also politically motivated. So today I'm going to start by talking to Imran's youngest son, Qasim Khan. Now, fair disclosure, I'm a friend of the family's. I know Qasim's mother. I know Imran as a journalist. I have interviewed him several times. And I know the children since they were little. In fact, Qasim and Suleiman are good friends of our son, Darius. Afterwards, after my interview with Qasim, Jamie's going to join me and talk with me to Zulfikar Bukhari, who was a former member of Imran's, team. He was a close advisor, and now he's leading the campaign for him as he's in jail. Let's just go over a few of the highlights. As I said, Imran is a legend in Pakistan and in the cricketing world all over the place. He brought Pakistan to World Club cricket glory back in 1992. He's a philanthropist. He built a hospital in memory of his mother. He raised an educational facility for the underprivileged. And then he wanted to get into politics. And he created the Pakistan Movement for Justice. Eventually, that was based on anti-corruption and welfare for the poor and bringing education and basically trying to, cater to people who he said had been left out of the political realm, through Pakistan's history. In 2018, he was elected prime minister, but by 2022, he had fallen afoul of probably the military establishment, which had helped him by agreeing to his election. Nothing really happens in Pakistan without the agreement of the military. And in 2022, he faced a vote of no confidence in parliament. He was dismissed as prime minister, and then his legal battles started. He was arrested in 2023, basically, and ever since then he has been in prison, and he faces a slew of charges, legal charges ranging from state gift corruption to leaking state secrets. And of course, he and his team say that these are untrue and that they are just political charges. He's still in jail, so we're going to explore this. Can he get out of jail? What would be the avenue? What would be the legal way to get him out? But first, as I said, I'm going to speak to Qasim, the human side of what it is to have your father, the former Prime Minister of Pakistan, in jail and to hardly be able to contact him, much less see him. Qasim, welcome to this podcast. I've already said that I'm a friend of your family's, that I've known you since you were a kid, that you're a good friend of Darius and our son. And so I want to have a very personal son-father discussion with you. It's been a long time since you've been separated from your dad, and this really horrible anniversary is happening. I want to know, did you ever imagine that he would be in prison for this long and that you would be so utterly cut off from him for this long?
I mean, honestly, I've had so many different instances with him where we've been extremely, we've been worried about him when he fell off the platform of 20 foot, when he was shot. We've seen so much which is quite terrifying around him. When he first went into prison, I wasn't anywhere near as worried as you'd imagine I'd be. I'd seen him have so much very recently happen to him, and I know his character, that he is very, very hard to shake. And I thought, knowing Pakistan, what usually happens is they go into prison briefly. Political prisoners are quite often taken and then are released quite shortly after. So I wasn't too worried. And as it's kind of stretched on and on and on, the kind of sinking feeling that it doesn't feel like he's coming out anytime soon has started to set in. So recently, more than ever, it's been it's just been quite deflating.
How do you and your older brother Suleiman deal with this?
I compartmentalize it a little bit. I try to, when I'm not thinking about, when I'm doing my own things, when I'm doing work, or I have, good friends around here, I just try to put it to one side. But it gets harder and harder as you start to realize there may not be a route out or an easy route out for him. And so it just sort of slips into the forefront of your mind a little bit more. So you try to just get on with things.
So given that this is the 3rd anniversary of him being in prison, his sisters are there, family members are there, and I know that one of his sisters, Alima, is trying with others, his supporters, to get either permission or just do a big march to mark this from, I guess, Punjab, I guess Lahore, where he's from, to probably the seat of government. What do you know about that? And do you think that it will help? Do you think there'll even be permission for that?
Thing is about these marches is whether or not there's permission. The government have been extremely brutal with any kind of protests that have happened over the past few years. It's a military dictatorship at the end of the day, so they have no problem kind of throwing around their power to just ensure that they're able to quell any sort of free speech or any sort of protests. And so they've done whatever they needed to do. They've taken people hostage at times who have spoken out against this regime, and I'm sure, I hope they'll be able to try and make some impact, but they right now hold complete power, and everyone knows that the most popular leader, the democratically elected leader, should be my father. But when you have these people in power, this army and government together, it's very hard to kind of make any sort of difference. And that's what I've noticed with all of the times we've spoken out against it. We've had the UN come in support of him, saying it's an arbitrary detention, calling it, amounting the detention to torture. After all these moments, we think we have wins, we think we can make a change, and then everything goes silent and we get nothing back. And sometimes we even get less communication with him.
So let me ask you about the communication. And you mentioned the UN. Well, the special rapporteur on torture has come out with a new comment about this. She said that he'd been held in near total solitary confinement for 33 months under round-the-clock CCTV surveillance, in prison for more than 2 years, which they say are politically motivated. His party does. And she has called on the government to, give him humane conditions and to allow him proper visits with his family and his legal team. When you and Suleiman tried to contact him, when was the last time you tried? And when was the last time you actually talked to him?
So we don't ever get the chance to try to speak to him. It just doesn't work like that. It's just very kind of poorly handled, all of it. We get a message at it could be any time of the day, 3 a.m., 4 a.m., saying that there will be a call in the next few hours. And then we just kind of, it's all done through WhatsApp, a random WhatsApp number of one of the prison guards, I assume. And then we have around 20 minutes, roughly 20 minutes, as long as we don't talk about kind of how he can escape or anything like that, then they just cut it off instantly. Not escape, how he can, be released. And so the last time we spoke to him was for Eid in March, and after that we gave a message on his behalf, and a pretty frustrated message. And since then we haven't been allowed to speak to him, and I can only assume that that's in retaliation to us passing on that message, because other times when we've spoken out, we've also had these elongated periods of silence. So we're just waiting on a message.
And how did you find him? How is he? He's 73 years old, and as we say, he's, kept in a windowless cell, as far as we understand, and for more than 22 hours a day, which is one of the definitions of solitary confinement that is inhumane treatment according to the UN.
Yeah, I mean, I'm personally more worried than I've been in a while, just because the last time we spoke to him, he was so frustrated about the treatment of his eye, about the treatment of, of the other prisoners. And I mean, the treatment in these cells are horrible. There have been multiple deaths from hepatitis from these, poor conditions and things like that. And the treatment of his eye was a perfect example. They waited 3 months to even look into it or give him any sort of medical treatment after he was saying it, that there was a major problem. And then they find this massive blood clot in his eye, and they refuse to publish any kind of medical reports on it, or they refuse to kind of allow a personal physician. So they're dealing with everything however they want to deal with it. So they have complete power over him, and we have no say nor any visibility on what's going on in there. So now it's been around 5 months since we've last spoken to him, and he was being poorly treated with a serious condition last time. I just can only hope that nothing else has gone wrong in there.
Have you ever, I mean, this is a hard thing because it would be risky for you, but have you ever thought about or been, encouraged or indicated that if you went there, you would be able to see him?
Well, no, not really. We made a bunch of attempts to try and get our visa to be able to go out there. There was no response. There were technical difficulties and things like that, apparently, that have blocked us. So they clearly just don't want us to come round. Potentially out of fear of us joining any of these protests or anything like that. They actually made a statement that was very promptly deleted on Twitter, on X, saying that if we were to come, we'd be arrested for joining a movement. So they've made their intentions pretty clear. It's pretty obvious that they don't want us there. But me and my brother haven't heard from him in so long now. Haven't seen his face in even longer. So it would be amazing to be able to see him and make sure with our own eyes that he's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to read this stuff out to you, being that, you're his son and you're in this kind of distress, obviously, but this is what the UN rapporteur says when calling it torture, often more than 2 weeks continuously without exercise or meaningful human contact. This far exceeds the Mandela rules. And she says, I call on Pakistan to restore humane conditions. So even in these kinds of political and imprisonments, under Mandela, they did implement rules, or they called for rules where he, would be able to have some exercise, be able to go out, be able to see his legal team, etc. Basically designed to ensure that prisoners have their dignity and human rights respected. And on top of that, Qasim, I've just been reading that for the last year at least, or maybe more, the state has basically tried to erase him from any kind of public view, not just the the fact that he's in prison, but take him out of the media. Don't let any newspapers talk about him. Don't let politicians talk about him. What is that like?
It's such a petty strategy, a lot of it, where it's that, they've refused to allow him new books for the last year. They take away small liberties and do exactly that, strip him of his dignity and his anything that would give him any sort of enjoyment, like phone calls with us, for example. So that's one aspect, which is the treatment of him. I genuinely don't believe there's anyone more equipped to deal with that kind of mental torture. But at the same time, the physical elements are what I worry about more, where he's in his 70s, he's been shot it's not hard to imagine who, only recently. And so to be kept in a cell for 23 hours a day without any human contact will take a physical toll as well, without sunlight. And that's what I worry about a lot. In terms of the censorship, the pettiness is incredible. In terms of they show the 1992 World Cup that he was the captain for Pakistan, where he won, and they don't have a single shot of him lifting the trophy or anything on him. They managed to blur him out of those, even those instances. So they're trying to eradicate him, which is very, very evidently, but it's an impossible thing to do when an entire country is behind him. I think there's over 95% support for him, and the rigging in the last election was as obvious as you can possibly make rigging, with kind of over 100% turnouts in provinces and things like that. So it doesn't take a lot to see what they're trying to do, and I wouldn't say they're successful in eradicating him, but they're definitely causing a toll on the people of Pakistan and me and my brother in a separate way.
Are you aware of support from other parts of the world? I mean, your father is well known all over the world, and in my introduction I said he was probably the most famous Pakistani in the history of the Pakistani state, and remains so. His name is still a very, very well-known name, even though he's out of sight. Are you getting support, I don't know, from the cricketing world, the sports world, the political world? What are you hearing? Any support at all from outside?
We did get support from a number of cricket captains, so from the sport world, yes. Occasionally we get a comment here and there from certain people in politics, but nothing major, and nothing that's moved the needle in any kind of significant way. Every time there is kind of people speaking out about what's going on over there, there's a small moment, a glimmer of hope for us, and I've quickly learned that it diminishes pretty quickly, and people move on to other things going on in the world. So realistically, it needs kind of major action from someone. But I would look at people like Trump, who our father had a great relationship with. I understand that. When you have the current people in power in Pakistan offering Nobel Peace Prizes and cryptocurrencies and natural minerals to him, it makes sense from a business perspective to just say, okay, fine, these are the new people who rule Pakistan, but these are crooked people, they're criminals who have no respect for rule of law and no honor whatsoever. That they won't honor their deals the way that our father would, and I know that, not from a personal perspective, but he's a man who really believes in rule of law, on democracy, and on fair dealings. And so I just hope that someone who is in a position of power is able to see that ridding Pakistan of these criminals will do good for the world.
And finally, before I let you go, when the last time you talked to him, and you say it's months and months ago, does he try to raise your spirits? You obviously probably try to raise his, but does he give you fatherly advice, or less, even in those short minutes that you get to speak to him?
Absolutely. I mean, he seemed annoyed at times, maybe. He's never seemed down. He's always been kind of his usual, a powerful kind of upbeat self who's giving us life lessons and a lot of personal advice. He's always asking about what we're doing. He gives direction on our lives and how we can kind of improve ourselves and what we should read and what we should do and how we should practice and all of those things. So he packs as much of a lesson in those 20 minutes, and he tries to divide it between me and Suleiman as much as he can. But I'm not surprised that he's able to be upbeat in a way, because those are the small 20-minute periods of joy between months and months and months of not being able to speak to us. So, when we're trying to ask about his health and things like that, he very quickly shuts it down and asks about us. And I can kind of understand why now.
Qasim, did he ever want you or Suleiman to be cricketers or politicians?
No, definitely not. He taught us cricket from a very young age. I'd say I was a very good young cricketer. But he said himself I was that we didn't quite have the passion. And when you're someone who had that cricketing passion when he was his age, I think seeing in us any sort of waver, he probably thought there's no point them being middling cricketers. And then when we went to school, I think we didn't quite have the same competition as his kind of 5 cousins who were playing international cricket. In terms of politics, me and Suleiman both have been completely off-put by any sort of politics. Seeing our grandfather, our uncle on our English side and him on the Pakistani side go through a lot of chaos, and I'd rather keep my life to myself, and I wouldn't really want to be in the public eye as much as I have been, but sometimes needs must, I guess.
Yeah, needs must. And thank you for talking and for telling us and reminding us all that your father is in prison, and the UN is calling for him to be properly and humanely dealt with and to have all his legal rights and his dignity as well. So thank you, Qasim. And we're going to talk to one of your father's former ministers, Zulfikar Bukhari, who's also now a major campaigner for him and for his legal rights. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Christian. Really appreciate it.
All right, and now I'm joined by my ex-partner in crime, Jamie Rubin, who's joining from New York. I think that's where you are. And Zulfikar Bukhari, who, as I said, was a minister in Imran Khan's government and who's now a major campaigner for what he believes, like so many supporters, are spurious and politically motivated charges. Let me just ask you both to comment on Qasim on a very human level. Jamie, you also, came across him when he was little. He's our son's really good friend. And Zulfikar, you've known him for so many years as well. It must be so hard to be a son when this is what's happening to your father.
Well, I'll start by saying, yes, it's very painful to watch. He's a very dignified young man. I think he spoke very eloquently about his father and made us realize what it's like for a son to see his father treated this badly. And I think he did it in a way that recognizes the nature of his inability to change things, but just wanting to say what needs to be said. And he impressed me. It's fun to watch a young man who we knew as, just a little boy playing with, in the pool or something, to turn into a dignified adult who knows what to say and how to say it and can smile even amidst the difficulty of all this.
Mm-hmm. And Zulfikar, I think what's really painful actually listening to that is that he lists how much they've tried and without wanting to be in the public eye, and yet they're doing it, both him and Suleiman, for his father and for this campaign, for their father and this campaign. And yet you could hear in his tone and in his words that nothing's working, and they're getting more and more disappointed, discouraged, and disconsolate over the prospects.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, both the brothers, Suleiman and Qasim, are very private individuals generally. And, they've been, you can say, forced to sort of come out and campaign for their father, lobby for his release. And, probably it started off thinking, okay, this is Pakistani politics, kind of you're always in prison, in and out for a couple of months and so on. And then it became a year and now 2, and now we've approached 3. So it just gets harder and harder. And, they've been very dignified, and Qasim and Suleiman both have been very eloquent. We just spent a few days together in Geneva. Qasim got the opportunity to speak over there at the UN. And, as much as brave as they are and as much as they're lobbying and fighting for their father, they're also not letting the situation consume them as individuals as well. So their brain and mind is free to work hard and harder for the cause of the release of their father. So both of them are just sterling boys. They're really, really good guys.
As I said, I mean, Imran is one of the most famous, if not the most famous Pakistanis ever in the nearly 80 years of the modern Pakistan state. He did get on with Donald Trump, and as you heard Qasim say so, and he had a lot of friends in the world. And we'll talk about some of the enemies or the adversaries he had in the world as well. But are you surprised, Jamie, that somebody as prominent, both as a politician and as a cultural and sporting and social figure, is left languishing like this? And, often we see the world sort of galvanize behind people like Imran Khan.
I'm going to say something hard, but I think analytically accurate. And that is that Imran's politics were not the politics of the West. They were very much questioning the West's behavior in Afghanistan and many other places. And if I remember correctly, Imran had worked a relationship with the military that enabled him to return to politics. And so I think from outsiders' perspective, we're always confused as to what happened, why it happened, what caused the break between him and the military. I think as an analyst, I've always been quite aware of the role of the military in Pakistani politics, and I'm not surprised at its dominance or its willingness to be brutal. Like Qasim and others, initially I thought this was a typical arrest that would be resolved in some way that we call Pakistani politics, where arrests happen and people are eventually released. That didn't happen here. Why he's not getting more support, I can't really answer that question other than to say that the United States is often a leader in human rights, and that hasn't been true with human rights being a not prominent issue for this administration. And the choice of the chief of staff of the military to play a very Donald Trump-oriented role in the world, combined with his Trump's break with India to a degree, has made it unlikely that the United States will choose to intervene, because President Trump sees it in his interest to have this figure who's found a way to ingratiate himself very successfully into Trump's circle and play a role on the international stage for Pakistan that wasn't being played in previous administrations, because we'll get to this later, but Pakistan and the United States have had a very, very complicated and very troubled relationship, ultimately broken over the Taliban issue and Afghanistan.
Zulfi, Jamie's obviously referring to Field Marshal Asif Munir, right? Who's really the person, I think, by all intents and purposes, running Pakistan. So can you go back and tell us why you think this happened? Why this particular political situation and, court situation and imprisonment has lasted so much longer than anybody expected, and probably longer than most of these issues in Pakistan? What is it? What were the charges? How credible are they? And why is it apparently so personal between the military and Imran Khan right now?
Our relationship with, at that time, the Chief of Army Staff, General Bajwa, was deteriorating probably, I would say, in the last year of our government. Imran Khan and General Bajwa weren't seeing eye to eye. Imran Khan believed in, the political sphere belonging to the political administration. And, the military obviously is far more deeply entrenched into Pakistani politics than in any other country mainly. And we accept that to a certain degree, but not to overstep it entirely. And we just felt in the last year that, General Bajo was trying to make a lot of decisions. And that kind of made things go sour in terms of the current army administration. Coming back to Field Marshal Asim Munir, he was our DG ISI, meaning our head of intelligence during our tenure when we first started. And then he was relieved of his duties, I think somewhere maybe 2020 or late 2019. And obviously that's a grudge. He probably thought that Imran Khan should have stood up for him or not relieved him of his duty or whatsoever. But he's obviously taken that very, very personally. And probably one of the main reasons why everybody at that time, when we were being, when our government was coming to an end, and there's no vote of confidence, then everyone vouched for him to become the army chief, because they probably assumed correctly, that he has a personal vendetta against Imran Khan. So he'll go the extra yard to take him down. What people don't understand is the army is very entrenched into our economics financially. It's probably the largest, it's probably got the largest equity in the country in terms of our economy. So maybe from what I know, close to about 35-40% of it is owned the largest landowners in the country. So army is entrenched more than just militarily, it's economically as well when you look at Pakistan.
Imran was considered way too close to the Taliban, that, the West started to, look at his government as perhaps, not quite what they expected or wanted during that time. And I just wonder whether, looking back, you think that there was some self-inflicted wounds politically.
Look, things could always be better than what they were in hindsight. But, when they say that people weren't looking at it, in favor, which people are we talking about here? Those externally outside of the country, as in the West, or are we talking about Pakistan itself?
Right.
Imran Khan had a very straightforward view, as Jamie pointed out. He just did not believe in Western intervention, not in Pakistan, not in Afghanistan, not in Iraq, and today not in Iran. So it's just, that was just his viewpoint from day one. So he always had a great cordial relationship with everyone. He had a great relationship with the Middle Eastern countries. He had a great relationship with Turkey, a very good relationship with England, the US, whilst President Trump was there. He had a very good relationship. But he just set his boundaries of, we're a sovereign nation, we're Pakistan, and we don't want any outside interference. And that doesn't mean that we have to run by the agenda. And yes, that might cause a little bit of discomfort in countries. But, you have to let people decide for their own. Within Pakistan, he's always been very popular. Today, he's the most popular leader the country has ever seen. And the reason why I would say that this jail or imprisonment has even extended longer than what Qasim, Suleiman, Jamie, yourself, and I have probably expected, is because of his popularity. If Imran Khan was a Nawaz Sharif or Bilal Bhutto at this stage, where they don't have that much, where they don't have any support within the public, he probably would have been sent on to house arrest or been allowed to confined to outside of politics and not enter politics. The reason it's been kept so harsh from him is, like Qasim very rightly said, is that they're trying to eradicate him from the minds. But, he lives in people's hearts. You can sit in any taxi, any country in the world, if he's Pakistani, and ask him who you support, they'll turn around and tell you Imran Khan. You can go to any street corner in Pakistan and ask who do you support, they'll say Imran Khan. And unfortunately, him and his political party and his wife are all either captives, in exile, in prison, or in hiding.
Jamie, we just can't avoid the fact that it doesn't look like it's going to be great for him in terms of getting out, because of what we was touching on before, that this current Pakistani government is positioned itself to be front and center as mediators in this huge war that the United States doesn't know how to get itself out of. I don't know what you think about where that's going in terms of, does Pakistan still have a role to play in that, and how does that complicate it?
I do think the current leader of Pakistan, the military chief of staff, is played his cards from his perspective extremely well with President Trump. And it coincided with a break with Modi, the leader of India, so that Trump regards his relationship with Munir as something unique that he created, that he is part of. In addition, Pakistan has played a crucial role in behind-the-scenes negotiations to try to end this war, which is certainly an example of a Western intervention that I'm not supportive of, because it has been one of the least well-explained and least successful interventions I can think of, and obviously is just getting worse with no sign of it ending. So I don't see, getting to your question, I don't see President Trump changing gears on the Pakistani question. I think he likes having this new relationship with the Pakistani chief of staff. I think he likes that it's a military leader. He likes that sort of thing, even though that goes against America's support for, civilian control over the military. He enjoys military leaders in other countries. Remember, he gets along very well with Putin and Xi Jinping in China. So I just don't see that changing. And given Pakistan's important role, along with Qatar and other countries, it's hard to say this given the topic we're discussing, but I don't see how that changes. And until this chief of staff changes, who's got a grudge, as was pointed out, that may be not good news for Suleiman and Qasim and the family, and obviously for Imran.
So how do you plan to take this forward, Zulfikar? How do you plan a strategy?
Obviously, our role is, Qasim Suleiman's and mine officially, is to lobby internationally, try to get some voices, try to get some more support for what is, insanely unjust. You talked about the special repertoire giving us a statement 2-3 days ago, but we have probably one of the most one-sided opinions of the UN working group on arbitrary detention for Imran Khan, saying that he should be immediately released, he should be given compensation for being in prison, saying his arrest and his imprisonment is illegal, and those who did it should be held accountable. I mean, it's a very one-sided opinion by the working group, right? And we got this about close to 2 years ago. Quote unquote, you've got this hybrid system, which the defense minister called it. And quote unquote, the field marshal called it, we are a hard state, right? So you've got this hybrid system, meaning we're not in full dictatorship. I'm going to have a buffer of imposed politicians on the country, which is basically when everything goes wrong, they're going to take the blame. And I'm going to impose a hard state, meaning that anyone who tries to say anything, they're going to the gallows, or if not worse. And now, 3 years later, economically, Pakistan is suffering worse than ever. You've had more of a brain drain in Pakistan than you've ever had before. People are leaving good jobs to take less pay abroad so they can get out of the country. Big businessmen are investing abroad. There's been no investment, and there's no FDI come into the country at all. There's been rollovers by countries. There's been no money that's been invested in our country at all in this time period. And the country is up in flames. You've got issues in our administered Kashmir, AJK. You've got riots on the road. So what exactly has this hybrid and hard state bought Pakistan? And quickly, just last 24 hours, the interior minister of the current regime, who is you can say a spokesperson for Field Marshal Asim Munir, or his confidant and his representative in the cabinet, he has come out and said that the whole system has collapsed, quote unquote, that this entire system has collapsed, and we need to think of new models of democracy. So after 3 years of putting Pakistan through hell, of bloodshed, terrorism on the rise, inflation, you name it, unemployment, you've realized that this system is collapsing and we need a new system. It's just not about Imran Khan. It's about where are you taking this country? It's going to take us 10, 15, 20 years to fix what's even done in the last 3 years and more from the looks of it.
Yeah. Well, Jamie, I don't know if you have a final thought. We're pretty much at the end of this episode, but it is a bigger picture. It's not just what happens to Imran, it's what happens to Pakistan and what happens to Pakistan in the wider world.
Well, yes. Look, the relationship between the United States and Pakistan has gone through many, many ups and downs over many decades. Obviously, between the United States and Pakistan, there's a good relationship now, but it's a part of the world that we always worried about. The biggest crisis, I remember President Clinton talking about his greatest fear was over the Pakistan-India war that he feared might yield a nuclear confrontation. Right now, Pakistan is a conflict with Afghanistan as well as India. So it's a troubled part of the world. It matters to the world. Pakistan is a very large country that matters to the world. It's at the center of many different problems. And I just hope that some good thought is made to try to bring some good out of these horrible situations.
All right. Jamie and Zulfikar Bukhari, thank you so much indeed. Jamie and I will be back on Thursday with our regular Q&A episode. But thanks for this one. Listen to it, of course, for free at globalplayer.com. And also you can always watch by subscribing to our YouTube channel by searching Christiana Manpour Presents The X-Files. And you know how to get us on social media and on our email. So until next time, goodbye.
This has been a global production.